Hello, my name is Escance, and I'm here to talk to you about aiming. So before we actually dial into the mechanics and stuff, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history. Basically, I started playing around 2019. I tried the game once or twice before that. It was fun. I shot some shells, I hit some ships, whatever, but it didn't necessarily stick. I ended up really digging into the game because of carriers. For whatever reason, they worked for me. And one of the things that was really nice about carriers was that you fly to the target. It takes a long time, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever. But then when you get there, you are highly accurate. And having some of the experiences at the lower tiers, tier 2, tier 3, etc., as a first carrier you have access to is at tier 4, some of the accuracy is kind of sus down there. So yes, you'll throw shells. Yes, you'll get hits. But sometimes it can feel kind of like you're just sort of throwing stuff in the general direction of the ship and hoping something happens. And that's because you really haven't learned the finer points of the mechanics. But I carried that belief with me all the way up to tier 10, played the crap out of carriers, and then when I finally made a transition to surface ships, I shot in the general direction of the enemy, I got some hits, but in terms of the specifics, like landing citadels or aiming at specific areas of the ship, there was a long time where I genuinely didn't think that was possible until I saw King of the Sea tournament. Now, in King of the Sea, you have some of the best players competing against some of the other best players on the server, and you will notice very quickly as you start getting to the later stages of the tournament that people do place their shots, and those shots can be extremely effective. So that challenged my assumption that maybe it wasn't just RNG, or maybe it wasn't just hopes and dreams, maybe there was something to it. So dialing in a little deeper, there is dispersion, which is going to be a bit of an RNG factor in how shells are flung from one ship all the way to another. Now, to make a real life comparison, and I'm not a history buff, so I can't dial too deeply into this, but I can give you at least some information. I think the average hit rate of a real life ship back around this time period was single digit percentage. Something like maybe 3 to 9%. It was very low. So the ability to actually get shells downrange and connect with the target at distance was a pretty massively tough thing. So in our game, it's not uncommon to get hit rates probably around 30%, maybe all the way up to 50%, depending on where you are and how you shoot. So you definitely have that weighted in your favor, but still, let's talk about the how. So I'm going to bring up paint because I like using paint. It's a thing I do. And first off, we're going to talk about two little aspects. I pulled this from a video that we have, which is how it works, dispersion. And this first part, if you look at it, you've got kind of your ship on the left, and it's firing off at a target 272 meters away, and you're going to see what looks like a dispersion ellipsoid. So if you play first-person shooters, because, hey, we're all gamers here, rawr. First-person shooters will tend to have pretty perfect accuracy. Now, there might be some guns where it'll have a little bit of wiggle to it, where it's not necessarily right in on the center. But in general, when you shoot something, you have a really good idea as to where those bullets are going to go. Ships, however, as I mentioned, historically had a very low percentage chance of actually getting hit because you are on a ship that is moving on water against another ship that is moving on water with massive amounts of force and possibility going on. I mean, just the thought of rocking slightly in a ship could completely change how the barrel's elevation is and the shell is going to go. And further, you're not necessarily dialing in on specific grains, you're using chunks of gunpowder to make magic happen. So the dispersion ellipsoid, as you can see, it's actually quite big. That means that shells can hit the target, but they could also go past the target. They could also fall short of the target. They could go ahead of the target. They could go behind the target. They could go all kinds of anywhere. You are using an ellipsoid. Now, the closer you are, the smaller that ellipsoid's going to be. So it could absolutely be that if we had this ship at this distance, that ellipsoid might actually be much smaller, and I'm just going to have to freehand it. It might end up being something like, I'll use pink because it'll show up, be something like that. Because the fact that it is closer means you're going to have some more accuracy, but there could also be a little bit of a deviation to it. It could go a little further than it would be here, whereas if we had a ship that was even further out, instead of having an ellipsoid, it might end up looking a little more like a circle, which could be interesting too. There are some tools that can show you more information about this for all the ships in the game, and I will mention those tools, but I'm going to do that a little later. But so we've kind of talked a little bit about the ellipsoid. You're firing, and there's going to be an area in which your shells are going to land, and they're going to land somewhere in that area. Well, how is that governed? So this is dispersion, which has an I. And this other part here, see if I can move this over. Can I? Yes, please. Boop. Is going to be, even though this says dispersion, we're going to talk about sigma. So these two values here are sigma. So the higher the sigma, the more likely something is going to fall to the center. I don't know what the maximum number is for sigma. Maybe it was 10. I don't quite recall. If you had a sigma of 10, you might have every shell landing perfectly in the center. Having a sigma of 1 means you have a kind of even distribution across, although it looks like there are some more shells falling in the center than out at the edges. So 2 is about where cruiser accuracy tends to be. If you're in a cruiser, you're firing at range, your dispersion will be at a semi-comfortable level because cruisers are sort of have medium-sized guns, which means they have medium-sized dispersion. And they'll tend to have about a 2 for sigma, so you'll have a lot of these shells will fall kind of in this center area. But you'll also have shells falling short, long, wide, up, down, etc. They're going to be missing the area of the target. Now, depending how close you are to the enemy ship, you may be able to land all of your shells, regardless of the sigma. If you are at a long range from the enemy ship, you might just be sprinkling with just a single hit or two, just because the dispersion itself is so big that if you had a ship that was only that large, that's a tough time hitting it. Yeah, you might end up getting a jackpot there, but no ship is firing some 200 shells in a volley. They're only shelling out maybe 10. 6, 10, maybe up to 15. So if we look higher sigma, going to counteract having larger dispersion, but it doesn't counteract it completely. You will still have shells that will fall on the outside. And it's worth noting that carriers actually have this exact same system. Theirs is slightly different. Carrier systems will have they added mandatory dispersion, basically. So if there's a DD that you're going after with a midway, I think it is 2 of the bombs will drop in the center area of the reticle, and then 4 of the bombs will drop in the outer part of the reticle. So basically, if you put the bullseye right on the target, you're not going to murder blap the DD. So there is a little bit of grace and forgiveness there, but that's something that carriers use. That's not something that ship guns use. So 2 big things are dispersion. You're going to have an ellipsoid where stuff is going to fall in, and then sigma, which is going to govern how accurate it is. Some of the highest accuracy sigma, I believe, is on the Stalingrad. So even though it'll have this larger thing, you'll have a whole bunch of stuff that's going to dial in on the center, which is really nice. And it's actually quite bizarre when you see a shell just kind of skew off to the middle of nowhere. And then if you played the Italian battleships, I think they have a 1.5 sigma. And it kind of sometimes feels like throwing a handful of confetti. Just meh. They do have sap shells, which are extremely powerful. So if they connect, they're going to be doing a lot of damage. But the big question is if they connect. So one way you can counteract this is to play a little closer. Playing a little closer is going to shrink the dispersion, the size of where they could go, and make it a little more likely that even if you're throwing a handful of confetti, you're probably still going to be able to hit somebody with it. All right. As far as, let's see, other stuff we can look at in the game. Okay. We're looking at cruisers, because I've been talking about cruisers. If we look at the Montpellier, which I believe is like a version of the Cleveland, let's look at the artillery. Checking out the main battery, we have 15.6 kilometers for max range. The maximum dispersion on the Montpellier is 141 meters across. Now, what does that mean? That stat, which is given to you in the port, is the horizontal. So going back to my little guide here, that would mean that for the Montpellier, this range here would have 141 meters across. Now, granted, if you start looking at this 272, very likely this is a battleship. Battleships will have a much larger dispersion area than a cruiser will. Destroyers will have a much smaller dispersion area than a than a cruiser will. So let's look at a destroyer and see what kind of numbers that might have. So trying to think of something that's going to shoot out to about 15 kilometers, so we have something similar here. Do we have the Khabarovsk, I think is what it's called. It's hiding here somewhere, but it's not going to be hiding at tier 8. I would say that's pretty effectively not going to be hiding at tier 8. Got a Delny with 13. Khaba, let's see. See if I can get the Delny out to about 15. I want to have a similar range here. Just do this. So 15.8. So if you remember, the cruiser that we were looking at had 15.6 kilometers in terms of range. When we look at the Haba, we've got 124 meters. It's not a lot different. Let's see if we have the ability to improve that at all. We've already got aiming mod on here, so we've got some improvement there. Next, we can look at how much having that dispersion reduced amounts to. But let me actually show you probably a better example of that. I'm going to show you the Elbing. So the Elbing has a specifically tight dispersion, a specifically tight, snug little reticle. If I can find it. Elbing, German, that's kind of in the middle-ish here. Doot. All right, Elbing's out to 13.3. At 13.3, it's down to 57 meters. If we were able to kick this up to 15, which I believe we probably could, maybe with... let's go for some range. Is it going to kick around 15? Yeah, 15.5. We're going to go all the way up to 64. So in this case, 64 versus the 140, the 120. Elbing having half of the horizontal means it's actually kind of 4 times more accurate, which could be a little strange. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pop paint back up. And we're going to look at this. So here we have square, whatever. This could be, say, 70 meters across or 144 meters across. So if we take this same thing and we shrink it by 50%, so that 140 across would end up being 70. You have a much tighter little inner reticle, but if you end up looking at this, let me do this. Let me copy pasta. It's actually 4 times more accurate in terms of the dispersion. So having the area where the shells could fall, it's only a quarter the size that's possible, but it's still going to come down to where in those are they going to fall, which is going to be Sigma. And Destroyer Sigma tends to be pretty decent. Why? Why are destroyers a little more able to shoot? This comes down to some really basic concepts in terms of like game balancing, which is going to be that if you have battleship guns that are extremely accurate, you probably just kill everything because you have very large shells that are going to hit and they are going to hurt. Okay, what about medium-sized guns? So cruisers, well, they're still pretty big. The shells are not small. You know, shells coming off a Des Moines or shells coming off a cruiser, they could mess you up. But the damage is less, the pen is less, the fire chance is less. So you could probably have more consistent hits, more consistent damage interactions, and be able to get away with it in terms of gameplay. And that's exactly what you see. The bigger the gun, typically the worse the dispersion. The smaller the gun, typically the better the dispersion. Not necessarily because smaller guns were more accurate in real life. That may actually be the case. I can't speak to that. But from a game balance perspective, if you have a destroyer that's firing shells that either don't actually penetrate armor or just barely penetrate armor, then they may need dozens, hundreds of hits to be able to take down a large ship. Whereas a ship that has massive battleship guns may be able to take that same ship out in 10 or 20 shells, depending on how well they hit. So it's really going to come down to how ships interact with each other. And yeah, so let's actually look at going into a game. So we can start, actually, I'll do a training battle first. So I'm going to create a training battle. For those that don't know how to do this, I'll just give you a quick primer. Training battle, if you go up to this little area, it's a button down at the bottom, at which point you can join other people's training battles, although unless you're in a clan with somebody, you probably have no idea who these people are. So you can click create a battle. You can choose the map you want to go on to. Ocean is one that I prefer because it has a battle mode called Armor Resilience Test, which is going to make the enemy spawn really close, as opposed to having to sail all the way across the map to get to where the enemies are. You can choose how many players you're against, or in my case, it'll be bots, the battle time, all sorts of stuff. So I will, let's see, go for, I'm just going to get some Montanas, and then we'll get some Des Moines. Sure. Or maybe we'll get some Baltimores. Let me do some Balties. Rockin'. And I could make the move. I could make them armed. Just going to have some stuff to shoot at is all. And we're going to talk about kind of some in-game concepts in terms of, well, how all this stuff works. The dispersion stuff, the Sigma stuff, and mostly how your aim reticle actually interacts with the enemy ships while you are shooting at them. Now note, these ships are not going to be moving, so I'm not going to be able to totally talk about that, but I'm going to be playing some co-op and using co-op basically as like a shooting range. I'm going to be using it as a way to improve my accuracy by deliberately taking deliberate shots to try to get deliberate results. And you can do that too, and it is very useful. So we're going to have some bad guys. They'll spawn up over here, and we're just going to move and get close to be able to do the thing. All right. CV drops have Sigma too. They do, but they have it's more that their ammo is kind of like locked in areas. Although I think for rocket attacks may have Sigma in like inner Sigma, outer Sigma sort of stuff. But shell dispersion is strictly, here is your big area that the shells will go in, and Sigma is going to talk about where they're going to go. Where will the VOD be posted of this discussion? I have been doing recordings and posting them on my YouTube channel just to keep them. Okay, so here we have some ships over here, and let's talk about some aiming mechanics. First off, I want to look over here at the mini-map. And I'm actually going to turn down the music because it's distracting. Rawr. Less please. I am affected by sound. It is a thing. Alright, so if we look over at the minimap, we're going to see a little circle. Two things to point out is we have a target reticle on the Baltimore, and we have a little circle on the water. So the little circle on the water is where we're shooting. That's where the dispersion ellipsoid would be. It'd be really cool if you could see it in the game, but unfortunately we don't have that. So mentally you can know this is where you're shooting. As we get closer to the Baltimore, if I go up and down a little bit, you can see how much that circle is going to move. If I go out to distance and I go up and down a little bit, you can see just how extreme much that circle is going to move. But when I get to the Baltimore and I start to move, it kind of sticks to the Baltimore. You notice that? Kind of sticks around the Baltimore, and that's because of aim assist. So console players might be very used to the concept of aim assist in other games, because with controllers it can be a little hard to do the fine-tooth movement of a mouse. So sometimes there will be methods that the game will sort of help you slow down when you're trying to aim at a specific target, try to help you there. Aim assist in our game is going to do something similar, which is going to help keep the circle on the water relevant to the target that you are aiming at. Now I could unlock the target by hitting X. The little target goes away, and then when I go up and down, it's not necessarily going to stick anymore. It's just going to kind of like move on its own, or it's going to move to correspond to where my shot is. But when I lock onto the target, it's going to be much more fine-tooth comb. So let's look at, I'm dialed in on this target, and I want to shoot specific things. So how about I aim here at the nose, and I'll throw some AP at it. Of course, now I'm changing over to AP, so we're going to load this. But let's see, when I actually aim at the target, how close does the shell go to where I'm actually aiming at it? Now, the dispersion on the Elbing is fantastic. It is extremely small, but you can still see that there's some wiggle room there. Let's see if we can move this over. That was pretty dead on. I don't think you can ask for more dead on than that. Let's try it one more time. Cool. So the question is, ask yourself, where is the dispersion ellipsoid in order for me to hit this target? Is the dispersion ellipsoid right under the ship? Or is the dispersion ellipsoid behind the ship? So that my shell would travel through the ship to land in the center of the dispersion ellipsoid. So while this circle shows basically on top of the ship, unfortunately, I wish I could zoom it in even further so that we could see, because ideally that little ellipsoid would actually be slightly behind the ship. And that's important if you're trying to do blind firing or for things that we'll talk about a little later. But if we were looking at shooting right here on the waterline, this ellipsoid would be dead on the ship or even slightly underneath it. So if we can just mentally imagine that ellipse where our shells are on the water, it's going to look like something like this, and the center of it is just in front of the Baltes, so maybe we raise to right about here. We'll take our shot. It might shatter at this range, it might citadel. In fact, it's citadels. So we have an ellipsoid that looks to be roughly about this big, because the Elbing is just so damn accurate. But there's still some variance, but we know where we can place it. Well, what if we shot here at the superstructure? Where would this ellipsoid be? This ellipsoid would be behind the ship, back here. And you have to kind of mentally extrapolate going through. The good part is that having this lock-on mechanism makes ship-to-ship fighting much easier. Because as a person that plays video games, you kind of want to point at what you want to shoot at, and then you shoot it, and then it gets shot, and yay. But ship-to-ship combat is very complex in terms of leading your target and placement and all of those other things. So it's sort of doing some work for you to translate out when you're shooting at something. Let's see if we can shoot at the turret and hit it. Looks pretty decent. And we do actually get the hit. But again, this ellipsoid is probably back here, is where we're actually shooting. But it intersects through the ship. Okay, so now we've kind of talked about that. When ships are moving, how does this work? You need to follow the waterline on this, because if this ship is moving straight, and right now we're at a pretty 90-degree angle, if this ship is moving straight and we want to hit a citadel, then we're got our reticle to be basically here, but led by however many seconds it's going to take for that ship to move forward. So this is the line the ship is going to be on. We want our circle to be dead on for that. And because of the lock-on concept, because of this aim assist sort of stuff that we've got on going here, I just need to take a bead on where I want to hit that ship, and then I need to make sure that I'm extrapolating out along the line of travel. And it should do the best that it can to make the computations, etc., to line it up for you. But how can you be sure? Well, one of the ways that you can be sure is to be looking at the reticle down here. It does look like this almost is going to drop short of the ship. So we could go back and double check where the reticle is if we're aimed here. And that looks like it's pretty on target. So how about we extend out again? No, still looks like it's going to drop short. So we could raise it up just a little bit and get that circle on the line of travel. This circle is going to be the best way for you to know where you are shooting relative to your target. Because the lock-on is not going to intuitively know that when you've got your reticle here, what you actually mean is, I want to hit the ship right there. It's going to do the best it can to extend out the line of travel and then let this reticle move relative to what it sees. So if I wanted to shoot the citadel, I might aim here. But if I wanted to shoot the superstructure, I'd aim here. Why? Because going back, superstructure. Going forward, superstructure. Even though, if we look at this again, that reticle is going to be off in the distance, we're placing a shot that's back there that's going to intersect with a ship that's moving. So I'm going to take a second and I'm going to look at chat and just ask, is the stuff that I'm saying making any sense, or is this just totally gobbledygook? So Q&A for the folks that are out there in chat. Yes, I think so. Woot. I do see, why are you not doing this on Twitch? Because our Discord is a great engagement center for us. We do have Twitch streams already, but one of the things that we strive to do is to hold stages and other content that's on the Discord for people that join our Discord and hang out on our Discord so that they get to participate and learn from that, which is cool. So far, everything you've said has made sense to me. Woot. As a new player of the week, this is gold dust. Yeah. Okay, so as far as ships that are not moving, you can aim. It's pretty good at knowing where you're looking to shoot. But how about we do this? Let's look at ships that are angled. So let's look at, say, this Baltimore. Now this, one of the problems, you could say, and I mean problem in the nicest way, with ships is that they are so damn long. It is absolutely possible for a player, a new player, even an experienced player, to look at a ship and go like, that's broadside. Because it just looks so long, it looks so flat. But if you look at the map, it is not. You actually have a bit of an angle there. This is probably like a 20-degree angle, say. Which is still fine, it's presenting a lot of side to you, but not necessarily broadside. So that means that if we were trying to shoot right here at where this citadel is, we'll take a shot because we're looking right at the ship, and we hit it, that if we were trying to aim for that, and we put, okay, cool, we got our line on the citadel, we're going to put this here, this ship is actually moving toward us ever so slightly. And that can be really hard to see, which means if we take the shot, where's it going to end up? Well, let's assume that ship is moving and it raises up a little bit. Probably going to end up hitting about here, which goes from being a citadel to being just pens. Which is okay, it's nice to get pens, but it'd be nicer to get the citadel. So if it's moving towards you, you have to aim lower than where you're looking to go. Now, how can you know if you're aiming at the right spot? You guessed it. The little circle. The little circle is going to tell you where it goes, and you'll notice that your target, it shows the line of where it's pointed, so you can see its line of travel. So here we go, we've got the circle basically on that line, which means we're shooting roughly toward the center of the ship. Roughly toward the center of the ship is going to be something like this. So if we're looking for that citadel, we could try to shoot directly on or maybe a little under. Also, just worth noting, suddenly we're aiming at the Montana. Well, maybe we didn't want to do that. In which case we can go back and we can either point at the Baltimore and eventually it'll make the transition on its own, or we can hit X and we can individually select the ship for, this is my target, I want to shoot at this. But if you do pull your reticle far enough away from another ship, the game assumes, well, maybe it's not trying to shoot at it anymore, and it tries to lock onto something a little more relevant. Manual control will always be more specific in terms of what you were trying to do, but it's worth knowing that you don't have to do that. One other thing, while I'm thinking of it, is let's shoot at this Baltimore again. So I've got them locked in. I'm going to shoot over here at the nose. We're going to see if we can dial in a perfect shot. Looks like we got one perfect shot. Now let's unlock the ship, and I'm going to see if we can do that again. We did get one, but we'll notice that other shell went so much farther away. Let's try here. And we didn't get a perfect one. We still got some shells in the area. So what's worth knowing here is locking onto a ship takes that dispersion and it cuts it in half. So by locking onto your target, you are massively increasing your ability to hit it. That does mean that if you're taking shots at ships that are in smoke, or shots at ships that are not spotted that you can't lock onto, you will have a tougher time hitting those ships because you can't see them, which means you can't lock onto them, which means you can't shrink that reticle to be able to hit them. So, yeah, okay. What if the Baltimore was backing up? If we came over here and we shot here, would we hit him? No, our shells would fall short. You can see You can see off the Baltimore that this circle is actually quite low in the water. We would need to raise up so that actually feels like that's really high relative to the Balti. That feels almost like it would be here, but that's kind of what the reticle's showing. So we could do something with that, or we can try to eyeball it a little more and go with something like this. Maybe that's going to work. One thing that you can do if you're still kind of learning this angling concept, it's graphically noisy. It's a little harder to see to have more stuff on the screen, but let's see if we can find this HUD, and let's go to crosshair. So one of the crosshairs is number 7, which has some spider webs to it. So the spider webs can allow you to sort of aim. So like here we have a flat broadside ship, which is the Balti here. So when aiming, it's pretty flat broadside. You can just line up and take the shot. Whereas now that we have this slightly angled ship, you can kind of use maybe this in terms of where that angle is going to fall. So in terms of the shot, you might shoot something like this. And let's see how well that lines up. Looks like it lines up pretty well in terms of where the circle is. So that's kind of cool. All right, so since these targets are not moving, moving targets are going to give us a lot more information. Let's actually go into co-op and try to see what it looks like there. Now, first off, we could just challenge ourselves to just hit the target. Or, okay, before we do co-op, I will step back and we will look at a battleship. Or possibly even a cruiser, but I think a battleship's probably going to be the better choice. So let's do that. Let's get a battleship just so that we can see the difference in accuracy. We'll use the Yamato. I think I have this. Oh, I guess I'd have to buy it, but whatever. Oh, that camo's pretty. Yeehaw. All right, so this I think gives you some better dispersion. So we'll go ahead and do that. Without the dispersion, our maximum dispersion 276 at 26.6 kilometers. So 276 meters. Now note, that can be affected by locking on, I guess. But anyway, so main battery director. That's going to shrink our dispersion a little bit by 7%. So that's going to take us down to 256, which is still pretty darn big. And once again, we're going to look at... we'll look at some cruisers this time. So why don't I pick some... we'll do Baltis and Montanas again. And I suppose while we're doing this, we could talk about, like, the benefits of shooting per se, like how to aim at enemy targets. But right now, I just want to focus on hitting the target. Hitting the target can be hard enough as it is. So in terms of like those sweet placements where you're going for one-shot kills and stuff, maybe I should save that for a little later and just kind of keep to the basics for now. So we got 15 seconds to kill. I will double check to see if there are any Q&As in the thing. What happens when you turn off aim assist? So when you are not locked onto a target, your dispersion reticle is like full. When you are locked onto your target, it shrinks by basically cuts it in half. So if you were not locked onto a target, it would be like all over the place. All right, so here we are. I'm not going to spend the time of moving forward, but we've got the Balti. We've got them locked on. And I will take, because this is a fairly long amount of time to shoot, I'm going to take a shot with us locked on, and then I'm going to take a shot with us not locked on. So first off, one turret locked on. Looks pretty decent. I could swap to AP because I'm in a Yamato, but we can see roughly how big the dispersion was there. Let's actually take another shot. And these are locked on. Alright, looks pretty decent. We had a shell go all the way over the water, and we'll take one more. Just kind of looking at how the shells space out. We can mentally imagine this dispersion cone. Alright, cool. So let's try looking at it from above. So from what we saw, the dispersion was probably something like this for a battleship. Now remember, with a destroyer, it was like our dispersion was like this. we could snipe, you know, like we could specifically hit the nose, we could specifically hit a turret. Whereas here, we're taking a shot and it's landing somewhere in this zone. It's a big zone. So let's unlock the Baltimore and take shots at that point and see how big it is. Well, that's not even going toward the middle. All right, so we got something all the way out there. That's pretty brutal. Well, that was better. Note, we hit superstructure, which meant we were actually hitting behind the ship, or rather the aim was going behind. And that one was pretty decent. So we had shells going all the way out to like there, which is pretty spicy. But we have to remember that it's not just about the size of the ellipsoid, it's also about the sigma. And I think the worst sigma in the game is either 1.5 or 1.4. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's 1.5 or 1.4. Yamato probably has a sigma of like 1.9-ish, 1.8, 1.9, something like that. She is a sniper battleship, but she has some pretty massive shells. So rather than just having massive shells that are going to be extremely accurate and just kill everything, there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room to them. So that's something to know. Like if you are specifically a battleship player and you love battleships, but you're like, why can't I hit anything? Part of the balancing concept of how battleships don't just run around killing everything is that there's a lot of dispersion to the shells. So, all right. Now, let's go to co-op and let's try to practice basically target shooting. Let's try to pick a spot on a ship and hit it, and then pick a spot on the ship and hit it. And if we miss, why did we miss? Figure it out and do better. Again, I'm going to use the Elbing because the Elbing is one of the most accurate ships in the game. So I think it's a great choice for kind of talking about this stuff. All right, so range. Actually, yeah, I will keep range. Elbing has really nice shell ballistics, which means the shells are pretty flat and they're fast, so they get to the target really quick, as opposed to kind of like going up and slow and floating. Ballistics can have a very big effect on how much lead you have to give when firing at an enemy ship. All right. Whatever. Actually, no. I will, for purposes of doing the thing, whatever. We'll do this and meh, whatever. I don't care. let's just go. We're gonna hop into a co-op battle. Cool. So we have 18.6 kilometers range. These are 150 millimeter guns. They can go out to an extreme amount of distance, and yet even still, all the way out to 18.6, they have 74 meters of dispersion, which is super small. Yeah. So the reason I did that actually is so that we can maybe try to aim at targets that are really far away and see how that works. The shoot assist on game options, you don't know. There's not, it's not a setting. It's not something that like you go into settings and you turn on or turn off aim assist. That can actually be a thing for consoles. Consoles that have some kind of aim assist and first person shooters and stuff. That might be something you could disable or not. For us, it's just how the game helps you to know how to shoot at an enemy ship. Rather than factoring in wind and movement and all kinds of whatever, it helps you just kind of point your gun in the direction the enemy ship is and helps get it there. All right, so this is co-op. In co-op, bots, there's a few specific things to know about bots. They mostly just go forward. They can slow down, they can turn, especially if they're trying to juke torpedoes or whatever, but they're mostly just going to go forward. They're bots, they don't care if they get sunk, they're going in, they're having a good time. Two, in terms of accuracy, the bot guns don't actually shoot at your ship, they shoot around your ship. I don't really have a good way to describe this. This is just something that, you know, I intuited, I dove in to try to figure this all out, and you'll notice the guns will kind of do this, where they're not shooting directly at you, they're sort of shooting around. And the reason why that's important to know is, in co-op, you don't necessarily have to, you don't have to bring your A game in the sense of like a 1v1, you know, quick draw contest. You have the ability to stay back, take a breath, take some shots, because the enemy bots are not going to just bullseye you. Now, if you're in an operation, if you're in asymmetric battle, you know, if you're up against some bots in a different situation, they probably can bullseye you. But in co-op, you have the time to line up your shot and have a think about it. All right, so looking at the daring, we have a 9.5 second lead time. And again, we can look at this circle. So I can't actually see him right now, but I feel like the circle is kind of where it needs to be. So I'm going to take a shot and we're going to see how it goes. Looks like it's a little past at this point, but let's see. And I got 4 hits because this thing is just ridiculously accurate. So looking at where the circle was, even though we couldn't see the ship because the island was in the way, we still had that line of travel, and we were able to line up with the circle on the line of travel, and we were able to get hits with it. So let's look at the Chappie. Chappie is 6 seconds, so we're not going to have to lead nearly as much. And let's look at this line of travel. So again, using the spider webs, we kind of want to get it so this line feels like it's going to the center, and we'll take a shot. Looked pretty good. It was pretty good. So, okay. So we're going to take this. Again, we're going to use the spider webs, and we're going to kind of line it up. And we'll take the shot. Now, that might be a little high. One thing about... Yeah, it was a little high. So one thing you might notice here is that as the ship is moving forward, you'll notice that even though we're leading him in front, we're keeping that same distance. We're not necessarily leading on the up and down. So the aim assist is not really tracking that per se. Corpses are scary. We might die. No, we live. So the up and down don't necessarily get tracked, but the forward does. So you need to be paying attention when a ship is coming toward you or away from you to make sure that you are, appropriately placing that reticle. So let's work on the Petro here. Now we have 150 millimeter guns. Petro's got a lot of armor, but we've got some punch, and mostly we're just trying to get hits. So let's try to hit center mass here. Only 1.2 seconds, so we can actually shoot really close. And there we go. We got some center mass hits. We got a kill. Cool. Let's go for the Iwami. The Iwami is looking like something like this. We can double check down here. We got the circle, but the circle is actually a little low. So why don't we move it so the circle is on that line of travel? And slowing down quite a bit. How about something like this? 6 seconds, but it does look like he's going kind of slow. So that almost feels like it's going to hit the nose of the ship. It does. So let's try and do something like this, maybe? Oh my goodness. That ship is just turning so much.
Our victory is self-evident.
That's probably going to hit maybe more in the center. Cool. And same thing. So the ship is turning. We have 6 seconds of flight time, so we need to account for that turn. And we get a bunch of hits there. And we're going to try to follow this line, this, where is the ship in the water, and try to make sure we're leading that. Alright, so that's going to be a little too far forward. It can be pretty hard. It can be pretty hard to lead a ship that's speeding up and slowing down and turning and alternating. So you're going to have misses. Even if you have really excellent aim, people can generate a miss. So when people are shooting at you, if you speed up and slow down and turn in and turn out and just kind of wiggle and move, you really have the opportunity to throw off the aim of the person that's shooting at you. So we still got the circle. It's on that line of travel. Looks pretty good, but we're still shooting a little too far forward here. So we can kind of pull this back. So some people will call this a ranging shot. Or a ranging shot would probably more accurately be taking one shot, seeing how it goes, and then adjusting off of that. So it feels like we're a little behind, so why don't we move up just a bit? Although we were not behind, because we hit basically dead center. I'm going to hit the stupid turret again. Unfortunately, I'm not the bestest aimer. But I mean, we got some work done. We got some citadels there, etc. So take a few more shots. And now that we can't see the Iwami, what can we do? We can use the circle. So let's try to aim with the circle. It looks like in order to get this shot in, unfortunately there'd be island in the way, but I think the Iwami is turning this way, and we can confirm that because we see the line of travel is moving. So how about, oh, and he's down. But it's okay because there's more co-op. You can just click that battle, click the battle on, try it again, etc. So
we stand victorious.
While we are loading into the next one, I'll go ahead and ask if anybody has any questions, and we're going to do it again. This time, we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to try to pick a specific spot on the ship. Maybe we'll try to hit the front gun. Maybe we'll try to hit the back gun. Maybe we'll try to hit the nose of the ship. But yeah. Is Kremlin good? Not necessarily in an accuracy standpoint, but yeah, she's pretty tanky. She'll sit somewhere and be hard and to dislodge. Okay, so because we're over here, there's probably 3 bots over there that we might have some interactions with. They might end up going mid. Not exactly sure how that's going to go, but I will go out here and we'll see what we can do. Worst case, we'll have some shots while they're over there. That'll be fine. Another thing I could do, bots will shoot at you if they can, if they see you. So because my range is so extremely long, I could just shoot and see if eventually a bot will see us, and then we can get something to shoot. Which is best, the Spider, Smart Horizon, or Static? Does it matter? More so the minimap is most important. So in terms of your aiming reticle, it actually doesn't matter. You could literally disable the reticle and just have a dot in the center of the screen. And for people that have played the game for literally years, they tend to shoot by feel. But when you're learning the game, having the spider webs helps you for angling a lot. Then there's something else. There's another HUD, which is dynamic. Dynamic works a little differently, where this will stay the same relative to where you are, like how far away your shot is. So see where the 5 is? When we click back, that 5 stays in the same spot. Okay, so let's try and lead the Preußen. 8 seconds here. Are we on line of travel? We are now. So this is line of travel for the Preußen, and you can see without the spider webs, it's a little tougher to do that. But 8 seconds. Let's try to hit the front gun. Let's try to, or the second gun maybe.
Destroyer spotted.
Might be able to hit that. I'm gonna go ahead and smoke here. And we actually shot too high. Let's try again. Let's go for the front gun and let's extrapolate out probably about here. And see how that goes. Because again, shooting at an angled target's pretty tough. So under lead again. Let's try to shoot that front gun. Alright, so here, we know where the Preußen was. So we can put that reticle on the path of the Preußen. We'll probably get some hits. We do. Even though we can't see him, we still have an idea where he was, which means we can take that shot. Here I think we could just bite into the side and kill. Yeah, because we're going to get pens at this angle. Because the angled armor will prime the fuse. So let's go for the Harlem. Let's hit this gun here. So pretty aggressively angled. We'll take this shot. Maybe that'll go to the second gun. Yeah, pretty close. Let's try this again. So I'm trying to mentally extrapolate there. No, we're gonna hit the front gun. That's too bad. So let's go back to the spider web, because I think that's gonna feel a little more accurate for what we're trying to do with the firing at the angled enemy. Okay, we moving? We're not moving. It's just him. All right. So here I kind of have a little more of an idea as to where to lead. There we go. We get a nice dead-on hit for the gun. And it's not that that's the best place to shoot. It's just I'm in co-op, and I'm using co-op as target practice. I'm using this to learn how can I, like, where can I place my reticle to get a hit. I'm going to pick a specific spot on the ship, and I'm going to try to hit that specific spot on the ship. It's kind of my little challenge. Players are going to tend to do all kinds of stuff. They'll move forward, they'll move back, they'll spin, they'll circle, they'll do stuff that you would not even begin to imagine. Why would you do this? So it's certainly going to be harder to practice like this in random battles. Co-op is it's not fully controlled, but it is more of a controlled environment. All right, so here we go. Let's aim for this. Let's aim for the bow here. Let's try to aim for the bow. So let's see if maybe that is going to hit the bow. A little low. We can aim a little higher, try and hit up here. Oh, turning in. Trying to hit here. All right, cool. We got the hit. Let's try to hit there. Close. Need to lead a little further down. I hit here. Okay. I think that was pretty decent. Let's see. Let's try to hit this.
Torpedoes in our way.
There we go. We got a good hit there. Let's hit this gun. So because this is going on this line toward us, that's basically what we're doing, was we're aiming along that line. Oh, he actually shot just a little behind it. Should have led just a bit more. Okay, better. Almost there.
Our engines have been damaged.
All right, I think that was pretty dead on, and maybe we actually broke it, so that's pretty cool. Let's go for this. We're super close. We're only half a second lead time, so we almost can shoot just directly at the target and get the hits that we're looking for, as opposed to needing to try to lead in a different manner. So here we were super close. I took a shot at that, but it actually hit the turret behind him because he was just moving that fast. And let's try to aim here. Well, unfortunately, there was a lot of spray, but I think we got it. We aim for the gun. Nope, too close and not moving fast enough. So we'd actually need to lessen our lead there to be able to have a good hit.
Our victory is self-evident.
Okay, let's try a battleship. Let's try something that's not super accurate. And we'll work on lead time, as well as just kind of seeing how the shells are going to go. So I have... The Montana was the first ship that I got. I guess I could play the Blue Archive Montana, which would be topical. Do I not have the Monty? Did I reset the Monty line? I could do Wisconsin. That was pretty... Oh, whatever. I'll play the Blue Archive Montana. And none of this affects accuracy, so I don't really need to worry about any of that. There is an accuracy module for slot 6. So we'll take that just for the funds. I guess I could take this one, which gives us additional range. Speed is always nice. And sure, we'll take a spotter plane. Maybe we could talk about some spotter plane stuff too. Very cool. It's all good. But yeah, what is best, the Spider, Smart Horizon, or static? So, it really just comes down to, is it giving you something that will help you? Spider, theoretically, is going to help you with firing at angles. Smart Horizon, I'll be honest, I don't remember what that is off the top. That's probably dynamic. Dynamic, every ship fires a little different in the sense of ballistics. One, the shells are going to fire a little flatter, a little faster. Others, they're going to fire, the weight of the shell isn't so good. So they're going to fire faster, but then they're going to start to dip and slow down and drop. You're going to have different shell interactions as you play different ships. So you could, for instance, go into co-op, take a few shots and see how the shells behave. Or you can use, I'm going to post here, shiptool.st. That, if you put that into your browser, shiptool.st, that's a great website for getting information about ships. You can actually see dispersion patterns as well as like ballistic patterns while you look at it. So you can get kind of a heads up almost before you touch the stuff, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna go with AP here. A few things to point out. So with the battleship, our accuracy is gonna be worse, but the shots are still gonna be the same. We're still gonna use the center. We're still gonna use the line of travel. We're still gonna have to lead, you know, based on our assumption of how long that time is. We could take a ranging shot to help us dial in. But we just have to know that even if we take the perfect shot with the perfect lead in the perfect situation, the dispersion on these big guns means just might not connect, or it might connect, but it might be underwhelming. That's a little bit of just what you have to deal with when you have all the power, the so much capability in the palm of your hand, which can be frustrating. So if you find like battleships they're just too inaccurate for you, try a cruiser. You could try a battle cruiser. There are some battle cruiser lines that are in battleships. You could also just try battle cruisers that are in the cruiser lines, which are going to have what is called battle cruiser dispersion, which is just, it's a little closer. Obviously, cruisers a little closer. In general, the smaller the gun, the better the dispersion. The outliers for that, the Elbing line has, 150 millimeter guns. That's pretty decent. And then, let's try and lead. Well, I think the sub's actually just gonna beach. Unless he's got one hell of a turn there. I'm pretty sure he's just gonna get stuck.
Cruiser spotted.
Will we squish the sub? Oh, we got in caps. So, I don't know. Sub is somewhere. Alright, well, we're spotted by a Yamato. The Yamato is bow in. You could take shots at the Marseille. In fact, the Marseille is probably going to be the better shot, because if I fire at the Yamato that's bow in, probably not going to do a lot of damage. Let's look at the Marseille. We kind of want to hit center mass, but at the same time, because of how angled the Marseille is, if we hit the center, we'll probably ricochet off the side. We have a 10-second lead time. Probably about here. Hopefully this is going to be online to be right about there. That's the hope. Because I think we're going to get a nice flat hit if we get there. But no. So it turns out the Marseille, instead of going straight, turned out and away. And we can see how that's reflected in that line being different. So one thing we can do is get within 3 clicks of the sub. I think I underled. We need to lead by 12 seconds here, so...
Torpedoes in our way.
We'll eat some sub-terps. Submarines in co-op are always on the surface. Or at periscope depth. They don't go deeper than that. Can we take this shot? Ooh, we probably can. 4-second lead time. I think we've got where that angle is. The circle looks good. We don't get very much, just a little nibble. And now we're in 3 clicks, so the damage these things do is going to be completely negligible. We still have to lead by 10 seconds. Might end up just ramming the sub. See how this goes. We got 2 splash hits. Whatever, I'm just going to shoot them. So, shooting at the sub, shoot at the little white spot above the sub. There we go. Sub's gone. I can wait for the Yamato. Which is probably what I'll do. I could take a shot at the Montana off in the distance. But I think I'll just wait for the Yamato to come around the corner. So let's get prepped up for that. So we can see this. Let's get the circle ready. The circle looks pretty latched on here. I think we're trying to go for this Citadel area, so maybe about there, because we only have 3 seconds of lead. A good piece of them. Would have been nice if we had a bigger piece, though. There you go, that's a bigger piece. And, yeah, we could take the... Oh, okay, I was going to shoot the other dude, but he got evaporated, so womp womp. Alright, 3 seconds. Let's try to hit here. We're going to raise off the water line, trying to hit superstructure, or rather the casemate. Take a shot, trying to go here. And actually, I underled. Overled? Yeah, overled, because the ship was going too slow. So I shot there and it was here. Should have actually shot further back into the ship to try to be able to get that hit. Alright, so at this point, we've talked about dispersion, we've talked about Sigma, we've talked about big guns versus little guns, we've talked about using the little circle on the water, we've talked about angling. So I'm going to kick it to y'all. It's been about an hour. Do you have any questions, any specifics that you would like to address or go over, or not? It is Friday. Some people want to go off and do Friday stuff. So Q&A for the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I think I'll be hitting that happy trail and wish you guys a happy Friday. Looks like we got something from David. Cheers for taking the time to show us a sub to your YouTube. Yeehaw. Hopefully it's helpful. I have a lot of lesson content on there. If you have specifics, going for dynamic, I think. There is a mod, which should be in Mod Station, also I think in Aslan's mod pack, which is called, oh my goodness. Trying to think of the name of this one, and it always evades me. No, it's been so long. There is a dynamic reticle as a mod that dynamically adjusts to the distance that you are looking at, and the top rungs are for 30 knots or 20 knots, and the bottom rungs are for 30, something like that. So if a ship is going left to right or something, just going side to side, and it's going 30 knots, then you would be able to lead like 6 seconds into the future, 7 seconds into the future, 8 seconds, etc. Not all ships go exactly 30. Some go like 32, some go 34, some go 28. So it's more of an assist, and that can be really helpful, especially when taking long distance shots. I have gone through the process of playing carrier, where you literally fly all the way across the map to interact with the target, interact with your enemy, and you have a very small lead distance of 2 or 3 seconds. Then I play destroyers, where you get close to your enemy, or you can, because your detection is so low. So you can get to where you're firing 3, 4, 5 seconds away. As I've gotten more used to the game, more used to shooting, more used to gun ballistics, I've increased that out to about 7, 8, 9, all the way up to maybe 10 seconds is really about the top of where I feel like I can shoot and hit things. As you start getting into really long cruiser ranges, it can go even higher than that. It can go 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe up to 16 seconds. And when you get out to battleships, Montana, I think, can shoot over 30 kilometers away. Super far ranged. In which case, you might have something that's in the 20+ second lead time. And man, I am not good at that stuff. But if you have the... I can't think of the name. If you have the dynamic reticle that kind of tells you like a 30-knot ship, this is approximately 15 seconds, this is approximately 20 seconds, can be super helpful. So if I remember the name, I'll try to mention it, but yeah. Okay, so Jembajon's heading out. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, Jembajon. Have a good night and weekend to chat. That's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you learned something. And before you go, I am supposed to record feedback. Did people enjoy the show? Did you learn something? Did you like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I notate all this for the big bosses and stuff. So if you can, just give me a something in chat. Yay, nay, woo, whatever. It would be appreciated, just so I can put that on the end reporty thing. Anyway, have a good one.